More than 500,000 Russian soldiers from the Voronezh region who arrived on the front line in early November have been killed near Makiivka, Luhansk region. One of the survivors, Alexei Agafonov, has reported to the Verstka publication about this massive and measured loss among Russian military personnel. "We were thrown into landings. We were told to dig in. We had 3 shovels per battalion. There was no equipment at all. We dug in as best as we could, and in the morning the shelling began. Artillery, multiple launch rocket systems, Grad, mortars, and copters simply fired at us. When it all started, the officers immediately ran away. In between shelling we tried to dig in, but the copters immediately spotted us and simply fired at us. 29 of the 570 men survived. Another 12 were wounded. The rest were killed." Alexei Agafonov, Russian soldier, in an interview with the Verstka publication. According to Agafonov, before the arrival of their battalion, at least one more battalion of the mobilized Russians had previously been defeated in the same positions. The Russian soldiers claim to have personally seen dozens of corpses. He says that locals and contract soldiers do not want to fight. Mobilized people are brought to the Svatovo region of the Luhansk region from all over the country to close the line of defense. They show on TV that everything is cool, but in fact, here in the Luhansk region, it is the mobilized who are thrown to the front line. And when we were retreating, without seeing the officers, we saw that only contract soldiers and volunteers were sitting on the third line of defense, and mobilized people on the front line. Alexei Agafonov, Russian soldier, in an interview with the Verstka publication. This information has been also confirmed by the wives of surviving mobilized men to the Verstka publication. According to them, their husbands are afraid and asking for help.
"They are now afraid to go anywhere. They are even afraid to go right to the checkpoints. The authorities have abandoned them and they do not know what to do. They just ask for help." Lyudmila Chernykh, wife of a Russian mobilized man, in an interview with the Verstka publication. "There are no command officers. No one is there. We want this to be known by everyone, what they did to our men. They have been abandoned like kittens, without training, without anything. And my husband and I have a daughter. She is a year and a half old." Anna, wife of a Russian mobilized man, in an interview with the Verstka publication.
Relatives of those servicemen who was under fire in the Luhansk region gathered near the building of the Voronezh prosecutor's office on November 5th. They demanded to tell them the truth about the fate of their loved ones.
On the very first day they were brought there, they were put on the front line. The structure of the command, all the commanders of regiments and platoons left the battlefield and fled, justifying this by saying that they will soon return and provide the mobilized citizens with their things. After 40 minutes, they did not return and shelling with grenade launchers and mortars began. "Help us rescue our mobilized men from the first line of defense."
The Ministry of Defense of the United Kingdom has reported replenishment of army reserves with mobilized men does not give Russia advantages and additional forces on the battlefield. Newly mobilized conscripts likely have minimal training or no training at all. Experienced officers and trainers have been deployed to fight in Ukraine, and some have likely been killed in the conflict. Russian forces are conducting training in Belarus due to a shortage of training staff, munitions and facilities in Russia. Deploying forces with little or no training provides little additional offensive combat capability. From the statement of the Ministry of Defense of the United Kingdom, November 5, 2022. At the same time, the Russian military is threatened with execution for refusing to go to the front line. The mobilized men who refuse to fight are kept in special camps on the territory of the temporarily occupied Donetsk region. The Insider wrote about one of them, citing information from the wives and mothers of conscious objectors.
The political officer of the Fifth Company in their so-called Donetsk People's Republic says that if they write any complaints, they will be executed, thrown into a common pit, and their relatives will be written that they are missing. "My husband called and said, 'Lena, our people can shoot me today.' They're completely depressed people. They were broken psychologically. I think that if they return home, they will need the help of a psychiatrist. In this state, they were already thrown into the basement. They sat there for 2 days on the ground in a brick basement." Elena Kashina, wife of a Russian mobilized man, in an interview with the Insider.
It has also become known that people began to be kidnapped in Russia to be sent to the front line. There are cases of disappearance of labor migrants from Tajikistan. According to Radio Ozori, relatives of the missing men do not rule out that they were forced to go to the war in Ukraine. Reported by Pavel Stelmach, Victoria Sinko, UATV News.